Hi everyone. So today, Top Tips Thursday, what I wanted to talk about is developing service support maps. Now, some people have these in place already. Some people are aware of them, but they're not quite in place yet. And so really, I just wanted to touch base with you all just to kind of give you an overview of service support map, what it is and why it can be really helpful and important. So initially, what you're looking to do when you're developing a service support map is map out internally and externally everything you have access to or that you're already using. So it's a little bit like an audit, if you like. So you'll map out internally everything you have access to, any interventions that are going on, and when I say interventions, I mean like things like people will be delivering, I don't know, salt therapy sometimes, drawing and talking therapy sometimes, suicide intervention training sometimes, things like that. All of those low level interventions that are happening in your school, you'll be mapping them out. So we can deliver XYZ internally in school to support our whole school community. You're then going to look to do the same externally. You're going to look to think about externally mapping out all of those external services that you have access to, whether that is independent services or more of those statutory services as well. And in doing so, what you're allowing yourself to be aware of is this is everything we have in place, internally, externally, for the whole school community. So not just your pupils and your students, but for your staff, for your parents, for the wider school community. Map it all out. It's a big uptake. It can be a big uptake, but we do it in small parts. We don't just go straight in and try and do the whole thing straight away. Start with sections. So start by mapping out internally pupil support, or what you've got in place for pupils internally. What have you got in place for staff internally? Then you might shift and look at the same but for externally, and you'll do it in chunks basically. But in doing that, in mapping out what you've got access to internally and externally, it really allows you to pull the two together and spot your gaps. So then you're able to say, okay, we've got access to all of these things, but we've got gaps here. And that's when you can then go and source and look for, whether that's through networking or other things, but you can go and look for where you want to bridge those gaps. It's also particularly helpful and useful because if you, as the senior mental health lead or the pastoral manager or whoever you are watching this, if you're off and something happens, or there's something, there's a child's need has been identified, and then you've got people rushing around saying, okay, well, what have we got access to? Where can I get support for this? Or where can I get support for this? That's a lot of waiting. And what normally tends to happen at that point, it is a case of, okay, we acknowledge that that's this is the need that we're focusing on at the moment. However, that member of staff's off, so we'll come back to it tomorrow. Or that member of staff's off till Monday, so we'll revisit it on Monday, and then they'll decide where that kind of need or early intervention needs to be deployed, if that makes sense. That's a waiting game at that point, and that's really unhelpful. So by having everything mapped out, what you're able then to do is, if you are off and there's a child's need has been identified and they need some support, then anybody within your school can go, okay, there's the service support map, we can access this and this, let's get that let's get that ball rolling. And then when you do come back in, you can be updated on that, of what's happened, what's happening, where it's at, and then you can take over, rather than being stuck in that waiting game. So developing those internal and external support maps and developing that whole school service support map is really, really beneficial to allowing you to have an understanding of what you have in place and where your gaps are, but also so that everybody in the whole school community is aware of what's happening and what they have access to.